I'm sorry for the mess. I can't offer much, but please make yourself comfortable.
Dragging her feeble body, which could hardly move well due to her poor health, Emma served a cup of tea in a dirty glass. Feeling so sorry for her, I just did what I could. I cleaned up and made some sandwiches. When I handed them to her, she cried, saying, "It's like a dream. I didn't know homemade could taste this good." Children are supposed to grow and save for the future. That's their job. Yet Emma's clothes looked like they could tear at any minute. Her overgrown hair was full of dandruff, and it was clear she hadn't had a proper bath in a long time. This shouldn't be allowed. My eldest son and his wife must have done something terrible during a moment of my inattention, and they need to be punished appropriately. With that resolution, I thought of ways to save Emma and punish my eldest son and his wife. My name is Linda Thompson, a 70-year-old housewife. After my husband passed away, I've been living alone. My husband and I had one son, and our eldest, Justin, is married and has built his own family. Fortunately, Justin's family lives near me, about a 30-minute drive. Justin and his wife, Emily, have a daughter, but it's been almost a year since I last saw my granddaughter, Emma. "Hey, can you let me see Emma briefly?" I finally brought it up when Justin and Emily were at my house one day. I've been asking to see Emma multiple times, but Justin and Emily stubbornly maintained that Emma doesn't want to see you.
I've told you before Emma doesn't want to meet with you. She'd feel obligated.
Saying Justin would turn away. Looking at Emily, she gave a wry smile and said, "Emma is at a difficult age. She's thinking a lot. I think she'll want to see her grandmother once things settle down. Can you wait a bit longer?" We had this conversation many times before. Usually, I would have backed down at this point, but that day, I couldn't hold back and retorted sharply, "You say that, but it's been a year. I'm lonely and not able to see my granddaughter. 30 minutes is enough. To see her face, say hello, and give her some pocket money."
But I told you no. Emma doesn't want to meet. I don't want to force her, even for just 30 minutes. Any parent would feel the same.
At Justin's words, Emily nodded. "That's right." But I still couldn't accept it and pushed further. "Just 30 minutes of endurance is too much? She's going to high school next year, right? If she's attending school, she'll naturally have to interact with others. Not everyone will be easy for Emma to deal with. What do you do normally? You can't make her endure all the time, right?" Over the past year, their behavior fueled a significant irritation within me. Unconsciously, my tone had become harsh, and I was surprised at myself. Perhaps provoked by my words, Justin frowned angrily, yelling,
Stop meddling in our family. We are doing our best. Don't complain when you're not involved. I've always thought you were a hassle.
"Sorry, Justin, but it's been over a year since I've seen Emma. Yet, you expect me to feel nothing and accept your words? I can't stand it anymore."
Your feelings don't matter right now. You're threatening our lives. You're no longer part of our family.
Those words from Justin were devastating. It hurt so much to be told, "You're not family," by my son, whom I had cared for over many years. "Justin, please don't say such terrible things. It was my fault." Unable to bear his words, tears fell. Yet Justin's irritation did not subside. He said harshly, "I've always disliked you. and I should have cut ties with you sooner. My heart was already breaking from the pain, so Emily stepped forward to defend Justin.
I thought this for a while, but you really interfere too much.
I was shocked. I never intended to interfere excessively. I was just concerned about my son's family as a family member, a parent, and a grandmother. Unable to digest her words, Emily sighed heavily and continued.
We need to distance ourselves from you for a while.
What? Her words made me dizzy.
Your attitude has been noticeable for a while, but when it gets this bad, we can't ignore it anymore. It's not just me, but even your own son, Justin, is feeling so stressed that we think it's necessary to take some distance.
I understand your point, but what about my feelings? Emily, since my husband passed, I've been living alone in this house. If even my family cuts ties with me, then I'm. As I said this, Emily sighed deeply, giving me an icy stare, and added,
Isn't that too selfish? If you hadn't behaved like this, neither Justin nor I would have had to make this decision. Please stop throwing tantrums at your age. This is already decided.
With that, Emily stood up and started gathering her things. Seeing this, Justin also said, Well then, and left my house. Wait, I called out repeatedly, but my eldest son and his wife did not heed my calls. Thus, my only relatives, my son and his wife, kept me at a distance, living a life that epitomized being alone. However, one day, a friend who happened to pass by my son's neighborhood contacted me about a concerning matter. As they passed by, they noticed a severe foul smell coming from my son's house, which seemed to twist their noses. Taking my friend's report seriously, I went to my son's houses. Indeed, there was a stench too pungent for an ordinary household. I had a spare key, so I unlocked the door and went inside despite feeling guilty. There was no response to the doorbell, so I had no choice but to use it. When you go up to the house, the smell gets even worse. Pinching my nose, I called, Is anyone here? And heard a faint voice from behind. Braving the foul smell, I moved toward the voice and saw a bulge under a thin blanket. When I lifted it, there lay Emma, severely emaciated and giving off a terrible odor, wholly weakened.
I'm sorry it's so dirty. I can't offer much, but please make yourself comfortable.
With that, Emma slowly dragged herself out of bed. Then, with unsteady steps, she entered what looked like the kitchen, poured tea into a dirty cup, and served it. Emma said my son and his wife had gone on an international trip. Emma had caught a cold and was left behind because they feared she might carry the virus overseas. They had not returned for 3 months, and Emma had been living off her savings from her allowance. But being in school and unable to properly manage the household chores, the house had become increasingly dirty. Naturally, a child's allowance wasn't enough to sustain her for 3 months, and she had even dipped into her food money, eventually reaching her physical limits. Since then, she has been bedridden every day. I immediately cleaned the house and used whatever usable bread I could find to make her some sandwiches. When she ate them, Emma said, It's like a dream. I didn't know homemade could taste this good. And a single tear fell. Huh? Her words vividly conveyed to me the kind of treatment she had received from her parents up to now. Unable to fully grasp the horrendous reality, an angry voice escaped me, causing Emma to apologize and become even more disheartened. Such a thing should not be allowed. It's unthinkable to leave a girl alone in such conditions. The adamant refusal of my son and his wife to let Emma and me meet was likely because they were aware that their terrible treatment of her would be exposed. Essentially, they knew they were doing wrong. Yet, they didn't try to rectify it, leaving Emma in such a dire state. If they had been thinking correctly, they would have sought help or taken measures to prevent such a situation from developing. They should not be forgiven for making no effort to hide Emma's existence, as if to cover up a stench. They deserve significant punishment. With that resolve, I devised a plan for revenge right then and there. Of course, I intended to have Emma's cooperation. Above all, she is the primary victim in this matter. Emma's eyes sparkled when I shared the revenge plan, and she exclaimed, "Grandma, that's amazing!" In Emma's eyes, her parents were already like strangers to her, with no affection left for them as parents. If that's the case, no one would complain, however much they are demeaned. If that's the case, no one would complain, even if they are thoroughly disgraced. They must be cast down to such depths that they'll never see the sun again, forced to thoroughly regret the crimes they've committed. Thus, I recognized my duty to make them face the consequences. Having allowed my son, a not yet fully formed person, to leave my home and establish his own, I felt a responsibility. Thus, I recognized that it was my duty to make them face the consequences. 3 days later, just as Emma had said, my son and his wife returned from their trip. As Emma and I had planned, we were waiting for them, cleaning the house.
We're home.
I heard Justin call out as he entered through the front door. Drawn by his comment, Emily chuckled mockingly. "I wonder if she's still alive?" I nearly yelled out in disbelief at her attitude, but I must hold back for now. They treated Emma as if she wasn't even a person. According to Emma, she lived day to day without receiving any money for her living expenses for those 3 months. In fact, when I visited, Emma was quite weakened and in a dangerous condition. Fortunately, Emma's health recovered by cleaning the eldest son's home, which was in a terrible state, for 3 days, and continuing to make nutritious meals every day. She still couldn't exercise, but she had recovered enough to move around reasonably.
Welcome home, Dad, Mom.
Finally, the living room door opened, and the eldest son and his wife entered. As Emma approached them with a smile to greet them, the couple looked around, bewildered. Then, noticing the spotless room and my presence, Emily turned pale and exclaimed, "What is happening? Why is Linda?" Probably, the couple had forgotten that they gave me a spare key when they moved into this house. They must have intended to hand over the key back then, expecting to push troublesome chores onto me. Whether they changed their minds or thought Emma was more capable than expected, they ended up giving me the key, but never asked me to do any chores. Instead, according to Emma, she was burdened with all the household chores and had a tough time every day. The couple was bewildered and panicked about why I was in the house. As I chuckled at their reaction, Emily awkwardly began to speak.
"Oh, Linda, you're here. Should I make some tea? I just bought some souvenirs. You don't travel much, right? There are some tasty snacks."
Saying this, Emily rushed into the kitchen. However, as she rarely did housework, she didn't know where the dishes were stored and made a noisy ruckus opening the cabinets. Moreover, when she tried to get what she needed, she slipped and dropped it. "Emily, are you okay? There's no need to rush just because I am here. We're family after all." Emily returned from the kitchen with a wry smile as I asked this, possibly having touched the broken dish, as there was a cut on her hand, but it was nothing serious, so I decided to let it be.
Mom, why are you here? I would have come home sooner if you had told us you were coming. You did the cleaning, didn't you?
Really, if you had told us, we would have cleaned it up ourselves. The house was dirty. Sorry, I'm just terrible at housework.
Emily is a bit slow at these things. On the other hand, Emma has been doing great with the chores. She's really a capable daughter.
"How about it, Emma? Do you want a souvenir?" Justin pulled out a rather unattractive keychain from the souvenirs. Most likely, it was either bought to give to someone else or for their own use. It was hard to believe that the couple, who had been treating Emma the way they did, had thought of her while buying souvenirs during their overseas trip. Justin presented the keychain as if to appease Emma, and Emma sighed heavily before taking it and throwing it in the trash.
Dad, your taste sucks. I don't want this.
Emma giggles as she says this. To me, her mocking smile towards the couple was nothing short of perfect. Faced with Emma's attitude, Justin raised his voice and shouted, "Enough with mocking your father. You've always been like this. A daughter that's never cute. That's why I don't want to take you on trips." Surprised by his loud voice, Emma's shoulders shook, but as if it didn't matter, she retorted to the couple.
Father? Who? Do you mean those who leave their precious child for 3 months to go on an overseas trip? At least I don't consider such people my parents.
Emma's words left the couple speechless. According to Emma, despite being put through unreasonable demands by the couple, she had always complied without resistance. It was the first time they had heard such harsh words from Emma. Until now, the daughter had always complied quietly, but now she was suddenly speaking out against them, and the couple was at a loss. As Emma laughed mockingly, then Emily, displeased by her attitude, shouted, "Stop it right now."
Do you think you can get away with treating us like this? Who do you think raised you to this point? If it weren't for us, a brat like you couldn't survive. Stop this insolent behavior.
Emily raised her hand high. Seeing that she couldn't avoid it, Emma closed her eyes, but that shouldn't have been acceptable. I immediately stepped forward, grabbed Emily's hand, and glared at her as I said, "What are you trying to do to a child? As a parent, as an adult, that's the lowest of the low. Apologize to Emma. Emma has always believed that maybe you would notice her someday, and she's been working hard every day through tough times. And yet, you don't even apologize to her. That's not something that can be forgiven as a human being."
Linda, please be quiet. I'm just trying to properly scold my daughter as a mother. That's normal, right?
My words made Emily's flushed face even redder, and she lashed out. Sure, if a child does something wrong, it's the duty of an adult, as a parent, to scold and discipline them. But as parents, this eldest son and his wife haven't been able to do anything they should. Before scolding or denying, they need to acknowledge and love. It is absolutely unacceptable to skip that first step and treat Emma, their only daughter, as a toy that moves only for their convenience. I thought I had to give them a piece of my mind. Just then, without learning his lesson, Justin stepped forward and made selfish remarks.
Mom, don't criticize how we raise our child. We're doing our best too. Living with a child like Emma, who isn't endearing, is stressful enough. Don't push us any further.
Justin's eyes, usually joking, now lacked their usual sparkle, and the words he spoke were cold, sending shivers down my spine. Where did the education go wrong? How did it go so wrong that they raised a son who knows nothing of compassion? The eldest son and his wife were inadequate, both as parents and as people. No matter how much I scolded them, my words seemed to never reach them, and they did not seem to try to understand. Even if I spoke up, would it ever reach them? If so, how could I make them reflect on their inadequate actions as parents towards Emma? While I was at a loss, Emma spoke up in a grave tone.
I realized that being born to you, I was miserable.
At Emma's words, both the eldest son and his wife and I were taken aback. But Emma, seemingly unconcerned about the adults, looked around and continued.
Mom never bought me clothes. I was always wearing Mom's hand-me-downs, and my friends laughed at me many times. Dad never played with me. I was envious of my friends who played with their dads on Sundays. I always wondered what was wrong. What should I do?
Tears were accumulating in Emma's eyes. But it was the same for me. With my vision blurred by tears, all I could clearly see was Emma's tearful smile.
But Grandma told me it wasn't my fault at all. It was all Dad and Mom's fault.
No, Emma, that's not it. We were thinking of your best.
Pressed by Emma's words, Emily tried to reach out to Emma. But Emma brushed off Emily's hand.
Don't touch me. You are not my parents. My family is just Grandma.
As if driven to despair by Emma's words, Emily collapsed crying on the spot. Justin stood still, unable to say anything.
Grandma, let's go. You'll take me to your house, right?
Saying this, Emma pulled on my arm. As planned, Emma and I went back to my house together. Later, the eldest son and his wife divorced. Apparently, after the incident with Emma, their relationship had become worse than ever, making it difficult to continue their marriage. There was quite a dispute over Emma's custody, but eventually, I decided to take her in and raise her. Justin frequently contacts me saying, "I want to see Emma," but since Emma refuses, he has never seen her face since. Emily tried to return to her in-laws, but I had already informed them about what the eldest son and his wife had been doing, so they refused her entry, saying, "We don't want to live with such a daughter." And now she lives alone, utterly isolated. Meanwhile, Emma and I live modestly together. Fortunately, my husband had left us with ample assets, so it seems we can continue without problems until Emma is ready to leave the nest. For that, I need to stay healthy. I want to be there for her as a second mother until Emma becomes an adult, finds a job, and finds someone she can live with. I need to take care of myself and do my best